Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu, and I'm back with another Digimon set review. So this time I'm going to be reviewing EX04 Alternative Being, which is currently slated to release in late June. But before I could actually review the set, let's first dive right in to see what exactly the set has to offer. So what is in EX4? EX4 Alternative Beings is, well, about alternative forms or subspecies of familiar Digimon. So these are basically palette-swapped Digimon, and they kind of originated from the video games due to technical limitations, where they needed to make more Digimon, but couldn't afford to put new Digimon in, so they just used the same model and basically reskinned it and called it a different Digimon, and then they eventually grew into basically their own new Digimon, with their own evolution paths and their own personality differences. So what the set has is a couple of new self-contained decks. It has the ability to start a new deck that's going to end up getting some support in later sets, and then it also introduces the brand new Alliance mechanic. On top of that, it's supporting a lot of older decks that we already have, and we have to keep in mind that this is an EX set, where it is going to be smaller than your normal BT set, so there's going to be overall less individual cards inside of it, making pull rates for everything rare and below pretty easy, and then the SRs and above a little bit harder just because they have to change the pull ratios due to the size differences of the set. So, as far as the new decks in EX4, well, there's a couple of new self-contained decks, as I already mentioned before, where you just need to minimally upgrade it, and you're going to be building the majority of it out of the cards inside of the set. So, the two big ones are going to be Alliance and Omnimon Alter S/Alter B, and then you also have the Grey Knights deck and the start of a Ravemon deck. And then, as far as what EX4 is actually updating, it's updating a multitude of different decks. So it has some updates to Twilight, Blue Flare, Shinegreymon, Gaumon, Terriermon/Lotmon, Gallantmon/Chaos Gallantmon, Sakuyaman, and a couple of individual cards that help some various other decks and strategies. So, starting off with one of the new mechanics that gets its own entire deck based around it, we have Alliance. So, I'm not going to be going over any of the decks in particular, I'm just talking about the cards inside of the set. So, as far as what Alliance is doing, the ability reads as follows, where when this Digimon attacks, by suspending one of your other Digimon in play, you get to add the suspended Digimon's DP to this Digimon's DP and gain security attack +1 for the attack. So this basically just can take a weak or strong Digimon and just to bolster them even more. Think of it almost like a tag team kind of attack, and green has lots of synergy for suspending your Digimon down, and there's a whole bunch of baked in synergy with 3 different evolution lines that Terriermon and Lotmon can go into, so you have a decent amount of deck diversity that you could try on top of various other tech and tools that you think would help benefit the style of gameplay based on the Alliance mechanic. Then, outside of that, the only other deck that is, for the most part, self-inclusive is going to be the Omnimon Alter S and Alter B deck. So the Omnimon deck is going to be a DNA-based deck, so if you're familiar with the DNA mechanics, you're just trying to line 2 Digimon up on the field to be able to DNA Digivolve into one more powerful Digimon, combining their stacks, which means that you're going to be combining their inheritable abilities to make a Super Digimon. And what this deck allows us to do is just try to have the ability to set that up on the field off of one Digimon. So the idea is you're going to play either the Gabumon or the Agumon, then that's going to allow you to search and Digivolve into your Greymon and Garurumon, and then that's going to let you then again Digivolve relatively cheaply into the Metal Greymon and Were Garurumon, and then end off on the Blitz Greymon or Crest Garurumon to then DNA right away into your Omnimon Alter S. So you kind of go back and forth between the 2 different Digimon that the deck is going to set up and let you do some really powerful things along the way to try to help control the field and to put you in a more advantageous position to be able to A, utilize your Digimon as best as it can be utilized, or B, just to allow you to DNA and enable this type of gameplay to begin with, acting very similar to Virus Imperial Dramon from EX3, but a little bit better as you're going to be drawing a decent amount of cards and digivolving on the field instead of trying to digivolve out of your trash. Then, as far as the other deck that you can make inside of the set is going to be Greymon. So, Grey Knights is a really interesting deck as it combines both Blue Flares and Twilights and tries to unify them. I just think that the parts and pieces individually are better off separated into their own decks rather than combining them into the Grey Knights deck, which it wants you to try to do. But if you're a new player and you're just starting off at the game, then this is still just something you could possibly make just investing in this one set. I don't think Greymon is particularly strong, but it's still something you could do inside of the set. And then the last big new inclusion before we jump into the updates is going to be the introduction of the Falcon Online. So the Falcon Online, utilizing Keenan, is allowing you to try to digivolve into Gravemon. You're going to have a whole bunch of on-delete effects that are going to try to pick the opponent's hand apart on top of their field, on top of various other things that you could utilize, just because it's interacting with a whole bunch of on-delete based synergies to culminate with your big Digimon wanting to be deleted, whether that's you being aggressive, the opponent deleting him, or you utilizing his ability to be able to delete him yourself. And you have a couple of different avenues to do that, and that's kind of just the core theme and strategy of this deck, is just a lot of self-deletion. So that way, it's just very annoying for the opponents to deal with, potentially. And then we already know that in BT13, we're going to be getting even more support for this. So if you're looking to want to try to play the Gravemon deck, then this is a great place for you to start, as it's literally a majority of the deck right here for you to start with. And then as far as some of the decks that this set is updating, we have updates to the Sakuyaman deck. So Sakuyaman is utilizing plugins, and it's primarily a yellow deck, but with the brand new Kazuhamon, we get to be able to splash in a little bit of blue, and we have some various other options that we could run inside of the deck, on top of a couple of other strategies, like being able to split apart your Digimon into various sources to be able to build up secondary stacks relatively easily to be able to continue the engine and train going in terms of all of the combo potential that this deck has. Then on top of that, we get a big update to Galleon and Chaos Galleon. So Galleon could utilize a lot of these Black Wargreymon cards on top of a brand new Gaumon that is absolutely insane for this deck. I wish we had it sooner, just because it allows us to have an easy access at a rusher, so we could try to apply even more pressure and damage onto the opponent, on top of the fact that Chaos Galleon does get a little bit more fleshed out of a strategy, allowing us to be able to delete our other Galleons to be able to play him from the trash, so we could always try to have a level 6 Digimon on the field, and this incorporating with some of his own strategy and various other parts and pieces could even form his own deck, on top of the fact that we have Medieval Galleon as just another pretty decent Galleon for us to use, being a pretty good security Digimon on top of just another Digimon with Galleon in its name that we could use for various different synergies. And then for some more minor updates, but they're updates nonetheless, we do have updates to Shinegreymon and Gaumon. So Shinegreymon is a deck that really wanted to reform itself in BT12, focused around Marcus, and these cards are going to be really important for the update to that deck to be able to make it even more powerful, because it's already just playing on theme and on brand with how that deck is trying to interact with itself, on top of the fact that we know that like Gravemon, in BT13, it's going to be getting even more support, so these are just some good cards to include into the deck to try to help flesh it out and round itself out and make it as consistent as it can possibly be with its brand new game plan and gameplay style. Then when it comes to Gaumon, it also is another deck that's trying to reform itself. This time, instead of trying to utilize Digiburst, it's trying to have your opponent draw and punish your opponent for drawing, and to punish the opponent for having lots of cards in their hand, which kind of was what he was trying to do before. It's just he wasn't very effective at it, and now with all these new tech and tools, he's becoming even more effective. And similarly to Gravemon and Shinegreymon, we know that he's going to be getting a brand new wave of support in BT13, so if you're interested in building either of these decks, picking up some of these cards probably is going to be a good idea. And then for some other really good generic tech and tools that we could think about utilizing, and some other cards that are supporting decks that we currently have, First up, we have Gold Vidramon. So Gold Vidramon is a really good card to update not only one deck, but two potential decks, just because he is an Armor Digimon and he is a Vidramon. So he could go into All Force as just a good generic level 4 Digimon that's fitting on brand with being a Vidramon, on top of the fact that we could utilize this in Armor Rush as another blue-yellow Armor Digimon for us to utilize it. Then on top of that, we have Gaumon, which is just going to be a really decent card to go inside of any red-black Greymon deck as just an alternative level 6 for you to run. And speaking of other really good generic megas, we do have Shadow Seraphimon for those who like more defensive and control-orientated gameplay styles as just another really good level 6 for you to use in something like Security Control. Then when it comes to just very generic cards that we have access to, we do have Victory Greymon and Garurumon. They're not necessarily amazing, but they can go into Greymon and Garurumon based decks if you really wanted them to. Then on top of that, we do have some pretty decent options for us to utilize generically. Trident Gaia is a pretty decent one at being able to delete Digimon and potentially burn the opponent's security. Full Metal Blaze is another good card to try to help clear the opponent's field, fill up their hand, and potentially bottom deck a really high level Digimon that you might not be able to get rid of otherwise. And then Gaia Reactor is just a pretty decent generic board wipe that's also pretty cheap and efficient. And then as far as my overall thoughts and impressions on the set, while I do think it's a pretty interesting and spicy set, I do like the theme of the set, and I think all of the cards that they chose, for the most part, outside of a couple outliers, fit on brand and on theme with what the set is trying to do. I just think that with this being an EX set, it's not really going to be meta-defining or meta-changing at all, and for the most part, going into the EX4 meta, we're just going to basically be seeing BT12 2.0, just because there's nothing really here that's going to be able to compete very well with anything that we've seen in BT12. Then on top of that, the Omnimon deck is probably going to be the only halfway decent exclusive deck inside of the set. Alliance is more of just this cute meme thing. On top of Grey Knights, the cards are better off used to upgrade Blue Flares and Dark Knights respectively, rather than try to be its own deck, which I do think it is going to bolster those decks, but those decks aren't necessarily the most meta-competitive right now, and this does help a little bit, but we'll see how it actually plays out if those decks with these updates are going to be any more competitive than they currently are. Then the big thing that you're going to want to look out for is going to be Shinegreymon Ruin Mode, as probably the best card in the set. He is one of the two secret rares in the set, so that's going to be the big driving pull and force to want to get the set to begin with, is so that you have access of that card, and I think that it's going to be a very powerful card to use not only just for Shinegreymon, because you could use Marcus from BT12 to be able to Digivolve for free into that card and be able to devastate the opponent's board, but it's also a pretty good and generic level 7 for any yellow or purple deck to utilize. And then EX sets being smaller sets means that there's going to be less cards that you're going to want to get just because there's less overall cards, and if you're not necessarily excited about any of these cards or not really looking to play any of the decks that it's trying to support, then you could completely skip the set, and there's nothing really meta-defining or meta-changing that you would really need if you're not playing any of the selected decks that it's trying to update. And that's not necessarily a problem, it's just something to keep in the back of your head. If you're really just looking to get certain cards out of the set, I would just buy the singles instead of just trying to heavily invest inside of the set. I'm not trying to say that this is a bad set. If you like the cards and like the decks that it's supporting, then this is actually a pretty good set. I just think in the grand scheme of things, this isn't necessarily going to help change anything, and it's just a decent side product for you to invest in if you're just looking to pick up a couple of cards or just want to casually pull on the set. That's kind of where I would fall, and I wouldn't dive too deep and go too heavy on the set, even though there is a chase box topper. Being a silver Omnimon Sword Defeat, I don't necessarily think that's a big enough pull for me to want to go super hardcore and heavy on the set, knowing it's going to have low impact and low relevancy. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.